Okay, so tonight I'm going to kick us off. People are still joining, but we'll make a start. Good evening, everyone. Great to see you all. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the countries throughout Australia that we're meeting on, recognise their continuing connection to lands, waters and cultures. I'm on Ngunnawal land tonight, and I'd like to pay my respects to the Ngunnawal people and also to all the people of the various lands we're on, and to their elders past and present. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from Tina Jackson. So Tina, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. The title for the session is The Evolution of the Community Independence Movement. We're going to hear from Tina first, and then Stephen and I have got a few questions to kick us off, and then we'll open up to others to add questions, either to raise your hand or to add them to the chat. And just for, I'm sure some of you may know Tina well, but just in case, I've a little intro. Tina's got an amazing and diverse career background. She's been, for the last 20 years, she's been involved in the environment and climate. Her early career was with the ABC as an industrial advocate. She's been the CEO of Arts Training Australia, the CEO of the Australian Institute of Architects, and in 2005, she was the CEO and board member of the National Trust of Australia. Since then, she's done a wide range of climate and environment roles, including program development for Nuclear Futures, co-founder and advisory board member for Zero Sydney North, a leadership role with the Climate Reality Project, co-founder, MD, and then chair of Do Something Australia, founder and chair of Impact 100, co-campaign manager for Zali Steggall, and co-founder and executive director of the Community Independence Project. Tina, wow, that's a lot. You must have an enormous capacity, and it's, we all benefit. With the next federal election due within the next 8 months, there's a lot happening to develop independent candidates to give communities a voice and to create a better Australia. A few months ago, Tina organised the 4th annual convention of the Community Independence Movement, People Powered Politics, and all the current community independent MPs were part of this, among many other speakers. And I understand there was over 110 electors represented. So welcome, Tina, and we look forward to hearing your talk.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you everyone for joining me on the Zoom. I might just check because I had slightly unstable connection. Can everyone hear me? Is it all okay? Yeah, can you give me the thumbs up?
Tina, we can hear you. Your screen's a little bit glitchy, but we can certainly hear you.
Caroline, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now, Tina? Tina's unfortunately Tina, we can hear you now. I think you might have been a bit glitchy.
You can hear me okay? Shall I just press on?
Press on, yeah. Press on for now, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Please let me know if it becomes too annoying.
Will do.
Okay, thanks
you. Tina.
I'd also like to pay my
I think that's going to work.
Okay, Tina, we might have to listen without your screen on because you are dropping in and out. You're on mute now.
I'm so sorry. I've just had to, I dropped right out. So my apologies. Again, just tell me when it's really not working. So tonight I'm going to talk about the evolution of the community independence movement, and Stephen tells me that there are a lot on the call that are supportive of the movement, and some of you live in community independent electorates, and some of you have been involved in campaigns. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Chris and Jill Lee, who are on the call, and they've been very involved in Team Zali. So first, I'll just talk a little bit about my journey and my why and how I got here. And then I'm going to talk about the Community Independence Project. and the impact of the movement and how we did it. And I'm also going to give you an update on what's happening around the country and the extraordinary growth of community independent groups. And then I'm going to look ahead to the 2025 election. And, you know, despite what everyone says, there's all the speculation about an early election, we're pretty sure that it's most likely to be in May 2025. When we go into the election, sadly, we will be one less independent with the abolition of North Sydney. And the outcome of the recent redistribution has just been devastating. And I think, as everyone knows, that the abolition was confirmed last week. And North Sydney has been a seat that we've had since Federation. And it's just a huge loss for the North Sydney community, for the movement and for the country, because Kylie Tink has just made and continues to make an extraordinary contribution. And her response was that it was never about me. It is always about my community. And this echoes what she's often said. It's about the we and not the me. And the community independence movement is about the we, the thousands of people who've stepped up, you know, to be part of the change that they want to see. So, which leads me to my journey. I came to federal politics because I wanted to see climate action. And I'm sure that resonates with everybody on this call. And I worked for decades on environmental causes, as Caroline, you've gone through in great detail, so I don't need to say too much about my background. But I came to the conclusion that to really shift the dial on climate action, we needed political action. So in 2018, when I heard about a group of people who were working to vote Tony out, I was in, like, immediately, boots and all. He was such a handbrake on climate action, and someone who definitely did not represent me, and he did not represent what I cared about. And removing him just literally took over my life. So I'd never been involved in running a political campaign before, and most of us were novices, but we were able to draw on our various professional experiences. And, you know, my background was in community organising and advocacy and running not-for-profits. And I have always been, like, really passionate about the power of the collective. And those organisations that Carola mentioned, you know, the Institute of Architects, it's a membership body, and one of the key focus is environmentally sustainable development, and equally the National Trust, another membership organisation, and focused on the protecting the natural environment as well as the built environment. And of course, all the work I did with Do Something, which I co-founded with John Dee, who was the founder of Planet Ark. And along the way, I had helped set up community gardens and set up the Collective Giving Circle. And a shout out to Chris and Jill. They've been on that journey with me as well. And I'd run, you know, sort of various other bodies and school bodies. And so I had very wide local community networks that I was able to tap on the shoulder. Wonderful people who joined with me with the campaign. And there was absolutely no guarantee we would get Zali elected, but we all jumped off the cliff together, and we threw everything into it. And we like to joke that it was a grassroots campaign, Warringah style. You know, we didn't have any political federal experience, but we had people with extremely impressive professional skills. And Zali ran a positive climate-focused campaign, and we were sending her to Canberra to further climate action. And we felt the full force of the negative campaign that was thrown at us by Advance Australia and the Murdoch press. But despite all the odds, we made history on the 26th of May, 2019, removing Tony Abbott. So I'm going to now go on to a slideshow. So just bear with me. I have to set this up again because I had been locked out. So sorry, just. So sorry.
That's okay.
Am I sharing now? I don't think I am I?
Not yet.
No, sorry, just two things.
I was just thinking that the dates, the 25th of May. Probably quite a few of us remember that day, but
Was it?
yeah.
Have I got that wrong? I said the 26th. Was it the
26th?
25th?
No. Sorry, I got it wrong.
Okay.
No.
Sorry, forgive me, sorry. This was all set up, and because I got thrown out a moment ago. Okay, I'm ready to go now. And I'm ready to share my screen. There we go.
There we go.
All good? Fantastic. So between 2019, after we got Zali elected, Kirsty Gold and I, and Kirsty is the co-founder of Warringah Independent, we found and mentored people in other communities like Wentworth and North Sydney and Mackellar and Goldstein and others. We met with them regularly via Zoom and in person in Kirsty's living room, because they all wanted their own Zali and we wanted to help them by sharing what we'd learnt. And Kirsty and I went on to be Zali's campaign managers in 2022. So our work with all those electorates then segued into the work of the Community Independence Project. And we founded that, and Kathy McGowan, Jill Briggs and Alana Johnson from Indi, and Alana was the co-founder of the Voices for Indi, and me from Warringah. So it was the coming together of the city and the country. Communities were asking us how to get their own community independent elected. They wanted better representation on climate action, integrity, gender equity. And now I'm trying to progress my slide and it's not happening. There we go. So CIP's vision is people-powered politics. It's to put people at the centre of politics for better governance, for better government, and a better Australia. Our purpose is to accelerate the growth of the independent movement and grassroots democracy, and to increase the number of diversity of community independence in Parliament, and those key issues, again, climate, integrity, and gender equity. So CIP is the heartbeat of the movement, and we help people connect and collaborate, building networks of trust and facilitating open source sharing and paying it forward. Back in 2019, there weren't a lot of us who had run an independent campaign. Now there are a lot more. And so the work that we do is connecting people, getting people to help each other and to mentor each other. A big part of our role too is that empowerment and inspiring and encouraging, and just say, like, we did it, you can too. And we have shared values and we work together in a non-hierarchical way. So these are some of the ways in which we bring people together. We have a community independent network. It is on the platform Circle, and it's kind of like Signal, Facebook, LinkedIn, Slack, sort of all rolled into one. And that's how we're connecting all of the community groups around the country. We have a public interface with that, where we have media monitoring, so on, and then a private circles for the groups to help each other. We give people access to experts who've successfully won campaigns, and we hold regular Zooms and small group meetings. We've got a toolbox of resources, and they're readily accessible on our website. And Michael can give you some of these, the links to some of these resources afterwards if you are interested. And we run annual conventions, and they've become our signature public events. And the first one was in 2021. And that mentoring work we do, and we also work closely with others in the independent ecosystem, Climate 200, Huddle, Voices for Australia. We meet regularly, and our little group we call Confab. So I've just put here some of the pillars of a successful campaign, and this gives you an idea of the structure around some of the ways in which we are helping the different communities. We have community building assistance. We help people at events, street meets, door knocking, building their database, volunteers, how to find leaders, empower people, work that needs to be done on demographics to help with the messaging and the branding and the comms and fundraising and all-important strategy, finding the right candidate, and the timeline when all this needs to happen. And some of these things need a considerable timeline. I'm just going to go back to a couple of where I just missed one slide that I want to just go back over, and I don't know why it doesn't want to give it to me. Yes, here we go. I just wanted to say something about what community independents are and aren't, because we get asked this question a fair bit, particularly as more and more people are putting up their hand and calling themselves community independents. So community independents genuinely represent their communities. They reflect the values and views of their electorates, and they have a compact with their community that guides their action. And when we talk about compact, an example of that is the compact that Zali had with the Warringah community to further climate action. And she did that relentlessly with her Climate Act Now campaign and her climate bill. In 4 months after the 22 election, the government passed the climate bill. And another example is Helen Haynes, and she had a compact with her community to further integrity and to continue the work that Cathy McGowan had started to set up a national ICAC. And I think just as importantly as what independents are not, they are not members of parties. They are not representatives of sector interests or politics. They're not single issue politicians, and they're not self-appointed. And the importance of this is that community in
Tina's not having a lot of
She's
luck
not
with
invested.
her internet. Her slides are just so good, and I'm right into what she's saying. Maybe while we're waiting for her to read, oh, here we are. You got booted off, Tina. We're not having much luck. I think you're on mute. If you just take yourself off mute.
Sorry, I was just saying I needed to share, which I am doing now. If this becomes too problematic, I won't worry about the slides. I will.
They're great though, Tina. They're
press on.
lovely. I love the look of them, and they're great. So fingers crossed.
No. Yes, fingers crossed. So I was just finishing up what I wanted to say about community independence merging, coming from the bottom up, because this is really important, because we've turned politics on its head. It's community first and then candidate. And what communities are doing is they're building a platform for community independence. And, we're asking these people to often leave their jobs. It's a huge decision. And if they've got a community group, a strong community group, then knowing they have that support is a really critical factor. So we are the heartbeat of the movement, connecting and building those networks. As I said, moving right on how we do it. And talking about the pillars. Now, in all of this, when we talk about campaigns, we remind people to have fun. Our campaigns are hopeful and they are positive. And I know that everyone involved in the campaign will know all about this. And if I look at Zali's, she has her 3 Ps, her prepared, positive, and polite. And her 3, everyone operates around those 3 Ps. And the campaigns are a lot of fun. And I think this is an important part of our success. So I'm going to say a little bit about our CIP conventions, which are our signature public events. So the first one was held in 2021. It was called Getting Elected. And Kathy had she had quite a lot of phone calls, asking her how to get elected. And so a group of us got together to have this convention, and we thought we might get about 50 people. So we were just absolutely blown away when we got 300 people from across 81 electorates. And so we knew we had really tapped into a nerve. And Simon Holmes à Court likes to say that a direct line can be drawn from the success of, from the convention to the success of 22, when we elected 7 more climate-focused independents and our lower house and our senator. And then in 22, we had our second convention, and that was just after the amazing election, and we called it Empowered Communities Next Steps. And then in 23 was Communities Taking Political Action. 23 was a community building year. And then as we moved into this year is all about candidate and campaign. So I was going to play you a beautiful video here, one that we made for the convention. It's very inspiring, but I'm just don't think the technology is going to do it for us. So Stephen and Caroline, maybe send people the link to this. I guarantee you will be inspired when you listen to it. So I'm just going to move on and talk a little bit more about the 24 convention. So its theme was people-powered politics, and a key purpose of that was to help people find others in their electorate to either start a community group or to join a group or to get help from to help a successful group. And the convention was the springboard for the action people were going to take as we head towards the 25 election. So we had over 50 speakers, including the community MPs and the senator, and then we have, and all of the recordings to these sessions are on our website as well, and I really commend these to you. And the convention has just been such an important part of turbocharging networking and community building across the nation. I'm going to. So just recapping on our timeframes, with Cathy McGowan in 2013, unseating Sophie, and then 2019 when she handed the baton to Helen, and Zali unseated Tony Abbott. Now we see 2022 as the launch pad of a new way of doing politics. And this was just a seismic change in Australian politics. And this has been said a lot, but it's really worth repeating, because in 2022, the combined major party vote was at its lowest on record, and the minor party and independent vote was at its highest at 31.7%. So that's like a straight third of Australians already voting outside the major parties, and faith in government and the major parties is at an all-time low. And in terms of the broader timeframe, as I said, we're looking to the federal election in 25, and we see the independent movement as a long-term strategy, and looking ahead to the federal election in 28 and beyond, because sometimes it takes more than one election to get an independent elected, and yes, we can talk about that a bit more in a moment. So I just want to give you a sense of the growth in the community groups around the country. Some of these we've been starting to form before the convention, but they've just been on fire ever since. In Queensland, now some of the electorates there you'll see are coloured red, and they are the electorates where a candidate has already been announced. And in each of those 5 cases, it was the independent that ran in 22. But we've got lots of activity happening, and there's about 40 groups around the country. So just bear with me. So I actually like to say a little bit about Queensland because I'm going with Zali later in the week, a little bit of a roadshow, and we are going to be on the Gold Coast to start with Fisher and Fairfax, and then we're going to Dixon, and then we're going to the Sunshine Coast, McPherson, Moncrief and Fadden. And Zali is going to be telling them about some of the work they're doing and inspiring them about what a community independent can achieve. And a number of them are using this as an opportunity to launch their search for a community independent. In New South Wales, we've got activity there, new groups forming. Victoria, again, more groups forming. South Australia, a couple of new groups recently. Activity in Forest and Moore in particular. Bullwinkle, which is the new electorate, we've got groups forming there. And in Tassie, within the Franklin, and we've got groups in Braddon and Lyon forming. And then Voices at the top end. And in ACT, we've Bean and Canberra. And this next slide is just going to this gives you a visual overview of what's happening here. I mean, just a few years ago, right, there was a handful of these community groups, and now we have nearly 40, which is pretty extraordinary. So the 5 candidates that I mentioned who have announced, there's just going to move myself. There's Alex Dyson in Wannon, and he's going great guns, and he had got 19.3% of the vote, 46.1 two-party preferred. Kaz in Cowper. So this is actually Alex's 3rd time running. Kaz ran in 22 and she's running again this time, and 47.7% two-party preferred. And Nicolette Boulay, who really did so well in Bradfield as well, as running again. And she's been campaigning as the shadow MP ever since the last election. Deb Leonard is running again in Monash. She came 3rd, so she didn't get to the two-party preferred. But Susie Holt in Groom, she came 4th on the primary vote with 8.3, but because she managed to work all those preferences, she came in 2nd on 43.1% two-party preferred. I have to say, just as an aside, you know, if you told me 5 years ago that I'd be sounding like Anthony Green here, I would not have believed you. I can't believe all of the electorates I now know. So just moving on to my next slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the next election. And and some of the issues. Now, like, we want to keep climate as a key voting issue, but it's too far out to say exactly what some of the issues will be. It'll probably be cost of living, housing crisis, migration, whatever the top economic issues are closer to the time. With climate, in 22 was focused on, are we going to act on climate? And so now in 25, I think it'd be more about climate transition, the speed and the scale and the technology. And of course, we're likely to have this continued discussion, debate about renewables versus nuclear. One of the things that we're going to see more of, unfortunately, is disinformation. And we also, going back to 2019, we had a lot flung out at us. It got worse in 22. It will only get worse again. And when we talk about disinformation, we're talking about information that is deliberately wrong. There's misinformation, of course, which is misleading and biased or propaganda. So misinformation and disinformation. And what's going to be very important preparing for that is inoculation, preparing people for the disinformation so they can recognize it when they see it. Now, there are no professional standards for disinformation in politics. And, I don't know any other industry where you can tell a complete lie about a competitor with no repercussions. And as I'm sure everyone will be aware, Zali has been pressing her truth in political advertising bill, and both parties have rejected it. Democracy is very fragile, as we know, as we are completely engrossed in what is happening in the United States and around the world. And we really cannot take it for granted. And, so we say to people, no matter what your primary passion is, a well-functioning political system, must be our first priority. And democracy is not a spectator sport. We see, like, get engaged, participate, get active. And I kind of like what Monique says. She says, chop wood, carry water. And we've got a lot of chopping wood and carrying water to do, to get all our incumbents re-elected and hopefully to get more elected. So communities around the country are getting actively reclaiming their democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. And the community independence movement really is like an iceberg. 10% of it is what we can see above the water. It's the MPs and the leaders of the movement. But 90% is what's happening below the water, the community groups, the volunteers, the people stepping up to do the work. And I say, even when you look at electorates where their candidate didn't get elected at the last election, the benefits and the wins for the community are enormous because they've shifted their views. They're thinking differently about the two-party system. They're energized, they have agency, and when the grassroots democracy that is happening is huge. And people who've never been involved in politics before, and they want to see change. And I think, those famous words, if not us, then who, and if not now, then when, has just never been more apt for Australian politics. And I'm just going to end on a little note here. This is a photograph of me with Mark Kelly on election night on 2019. And Mark Kelly, for those who don't know, is the founder of Vote Tony Out. And Vote Tony Out was a really, really important part of the tribe building that happened to prepare for Zali when we found Zali. And he did, this is a huge mural. It's now in Zali's office, and it's just made up of all of the different positive flyers that she had and she gave out to the electorate. And it was a counterpoint to all of the negative, black and red flyers. It was all the lies to create fear. And I think so. I'd like to leave on this, positive message that there we go, that love wins, and that the movement is joyful, it's positive, everybody is welcome, and I do hope that, and I know many of you have been involved in different campaigns, but if you haven't been, I hope you will get involved. There is a lot of work to be done, as I said, to get our incumbents re-elected. We also need to find more great candidates. So, have people have ideas about that, because a lot of those communities that I went through before are actively looking for their candidates. And so it's really important to get the word out there that I put the shingle is out. We really do want good people. We need more campaigners, and we need more volunteers. We need donors, and I know some people on the call, I'm sure, donate to Climate 200, but we need people also to donate directly to the campaigns. If anyone would like to help us with the work we do at CIP, we're mostly volunteers. That would be fabulous as well. So they are just some of the ways to get in touch. This is a lovely moment that I always liked, the Zali campaign and our umbrellas. We haven't worked out what, one of our new things that we will have next time. I'm sure we'll think of something fabulous. So please, if you're not already part of this movement, please join us. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, Tina. That's a fabulous summary of the independents and where you've come to and everything. It's really, really great. And I think, I speak for many of us who've been involved. It is a lot of fun. So, yeah. Now, Carolyn and I have got a few questions, and then we're going to open up to the group after that. So if you've got questions, please put them in the chat and we'll cover off those. But I mean, Tina, just a couple of sort of basic ones to start with. Maybe just for those that don't know, maybe a little bit about what the independence movement and Climate 200 and how the two sort of intersect with each other. You just go over that.
Yes. So we work closely with Climate 200, as I mentioned, and other groups. So look, Climate 200 was set up to raise funds, and they have really supercharged the community-led campaign. So they don't establish campaigns. And they ask the community campaigns to raise at least 50 to 80% of the funds themselves, and Climate 200 then gives them more money. And they have, over 11,000 donors, and whereas the Community Independence Project, we are working with the community. We don't do any funding, but we're work at doing that connecting work. So our roles are complementary, but really very, very different.
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of the longer term potential, I mean, you've touched on a bit. I noticed one of your slides had sort of the elections going out to sort of 2030, etc. I mean, and you mentioned that the amount of activity that's happening now with the groups is way ahead of where it was. Where do you think, what do you think might happen at the next election, and then where do you think it might go from there? I know it's a bit sort of blue sky, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, we certainly, as we talk about our 10-year plan, but so I'm talking about CIP, but sometimes we go, oh, where did the 10 years actually start? But it's like we need to be thinking about, if we take 22 as the launch pad, hopefully we will get more. As I said, hopefully we get everyone re-elected. Sadly, not Kylie. We get some new independents this time around, and we get more independents next time around. We do not want this to be just a flash in the pan, a blip in Australian politics. We want to see this as a long-term trajectory, because there are so many important policy changes that have to happen. And so we really feel that independents are the way forward to get those changes. So it's a long-term plan, and I think I'm so optimistic because I look at where we've come. When you go right back to Cathy, just lone Cathy, and then re-election in 2016, and then 2019, and then what happened in 22. And I think that was much more than just the Morrison government and all those the different factors that people might say were the reason we got all those independents up. I am very hopeful about the next election, and then after that. But none of us know. Politics. Politics can turn on a dime, but given the enthusiasm and the grassroots involvement in this movement, I am very, very optimistic.
And in terms of obviously preserving the independents that have already won at the 22 election, and the boundary changes, obviously, with Kylie not being there, but what impact will those boundary changes have on, say, Warringah and some of the other independencies, do you think?
Yes, well, I think I don't have them in front of me, but the changes to Wentworth, I think, are going to help Allegra. That's going to be quite positive for her. I think the changes that have happened to Mackellar, again, quite positive for Mackellar. Zali has now taken on a third of North Sydney, so she has now got the North Sydney CBD, Chatswood, St Leonard's, Wollstonecraft, Crow's Nest. I can't remember Artarmon, but all of that North Sydney area. So Warringah now becomes more a harbourside seat than a beach seat. I mean, Kylie's done great work there, and so I think that things will absolutely be fine for Zali. Bradfield, I think what they have gained is quite helpful for Nicolette as well. The really big loss is the loss of North Sydney.
Yeah.
It's the other independents should be okay, but the sad thing is we're one independent down, and I should say that community is utterly devastated. And groups of us, like, really, we went to the AEC hearings. I thought we put a really good case forward, and I was actually hopeful that it might not happen, but it has.
Yeah. And interestingly, Matt's just asked about that. Could Kylie maybe move to the Senate, and just any plans for the Senate more broadly with independents, given what we.
Yes. The Senate in New South Wales, of course, you need a huge quota to get somebody up in the Senate. And there's a group in Victoria thinking about the Senate. So there is always the Senate there, and of course David Pocock has done such a great job. I think in the Northern Territory, that Voices of the Top End that I had there, I think they are thinking about the Senate, and of course it's much easier in the Northern Territory. It's in a smaller territory like the ACT Northern Territory. So nothing, there's nothing firm that I can report to you on that front. So
yeah. And what about independence into local government? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. And I just talk about my neck of the woods. The local council elections on the weekend. We had independents returned in Mossman, and in the Northern Beaches, and in North Sydney. So we're very, very thrilled that in a whole lot of areas we now have the 3 tiers of government independent. We have Zali, and in Wakehurst we have Michael Regan, and then at local government. Like local government is a great training ground too. I mean, it's a great place for people to start if they're interested in politics, and I really just hope that more independents will run in the local government. Now, at Community Independence Project, our focus is on federal, but but just great to see more independence at every level of government. And although we didn't see a lot of independence win at the state elections in New South Wales and Victoria, there was some notable exceptions. In Wallandilly, Judy Hannan, she got elected, and Michael Regan was elected in Wakehurst. And Doff Dickinson, who did the branding for Zali, and sort of the first steel branding, as happened, she did different branding for Michael, and it was maroon and orange. And I raise that example because I think we'll be seeing a little bit more different branding for community independence. They're not necessarily all going to be teal, a bit like Kylie was pink, and more of a variety. So and I hope that we will see another independent at the by-election on the 19th of October in Pittwater, and Jackie Scrooby is running there, and I'm sure people know that the Liberal there has had to resign, and she missed out on that by about 600 votes. So we're really hoping that that she will get up next time, and that's a great example how politics can turn on a dime, because she was there. She's actually Zali is one of Zali's policy advisors. She's just doing that, and then the next day she's back running again.
Yeah. And you talked about Queensland. Sounds like a bit going on there. What about in Victoria and WA? What do you?
Yes. So in Victoria, as I mentioned, there's in Monash, Deb is running again, and there's things happening in other electorates there, in Nichols and various other electorates. I don't have my slide up. I'm just having trouble remembering off the top of my head. Queensland, I am super excited about. And as I said, we're having this roadshow with Zali next week, and particularly southeast Queensland, the Sunshine Coast. We're starting in the Sunshine Coast, and then we're going to Dixon, and then the Gold Coast, and they are just really on fire there. And of course, we have Susie Holt, who ran in Groom as well. So those we've got six seats that we're going to visit, and Susie, and that's all that's happening at the moment, but there might be more. So going, I think that, if I won't bring it up again, but that map of Australia, basically we've got things happening in every part of Australia now.
That's fantastic. And do you think Monique, for example, in Melbourne, do you think Monique Ryan, is she looking good to retain her seat, do you think?
Well, I'm not as close on the ground. Obviously, I'm down there in Victoria, but they are campaigning very hard, and she's doing an amazing job. So I just really can't see why she wouldn't be re-elected. And the same for Zoe.
Yeah, that's good. Carolyn, I might bring you in here.
We've just got a couple of questions we've got some really interesting questions in the chat. I'll just start from the top. So Carolyn's asked, who is helping to develop the comms to inoculate the community against the disinformation coming from the far right?
Yes, well, look, a lot is happening in this area. Like there's a consortium of different organisations working together on this. I mean, certainly CIP is doing work. We started the year with a Zoom about disinformation, and we had experts talking about that. I mean, if that is something that I can't see who's asked that question, but if that is something, Carolyn, that you're particularly interested in, I'm very happy to chat to you about that afterwards, and hook you in to what's happening there. A lot.
Thanks, Tina. I saw that they're making some changes to the New South Wales curriculum that is even addressing misinformation and disinformation. That's obviously long term, but it was great to see that. Chris and Jill have asked, it's clear that we don't want what we don't want, but will it come to a time and a number of independents when there will be issues of difference in policies, such as around tax, housing, immigration, and growth. Faction, like a bit like what we see with factions with the major parties.
Well, I'm not sure we call it factions because they're not parties, and they do have different opinions because they are independents. I mean, they're pretty, they're united on, on key things like climate and integrity and so on, but they do vote differently because they're not a party, and they are all independents. But they do, having said that, they do work together. They are collegiate. And I think, if the situation came where it was a minority government, which I should say, many people feel would be a good thing, because then we would have to have compromise, that they would be able to work together sensibly. But they are not a party, and they are all independents, and they reflect the views of their communities, and they take to Canberra what their communities ask them to do.
Lisa's asked, is there any movement in the move by the major? Is there anything happening with the major parties to make it harder for independents? Sure. That's a yes.
Well, yes. We're yet to see what happens on funding, because that is they are talking about changes to having caps on funding, and policies that would disadvantage the independents, because they don't have the access to the funds that the major parties do. So that and people will remember early on that Albo cut the staff for the independents, and they didn't cut the constituent staff, but they cut the staff, the Canberra staff, from 4 to 1, and that was a huge blow, and that's made life very difficult. But the funding, the funding is a problem. The so-called reforms to funding, which would be to the detriment of independents, and would benefit the major parties. They have said that they won't make any changes to funding. If they did pass legislation, that they wouldn't come into effect until the next election. So I think this election, it's as it has been, but that is a major threat to the independents. And I think Albanese has said, I don't mind the independence of the year, but I don't want more. So.
We're in his electorate. I'm feeling like I might be about to get active. There's a couple of comments. I don't know whether you've seen, but both Ray and Lisa are based in Kooyong. And Ray said, I'm in Monique's electorate of Kooyong. She's built very strong community relations, but has to win over part of Higgins, which has been abolished. And Lisa said Monique's highlighting the issue of funding with her electorate now. So that's
yes. And they're already out there in Higgins. I mean, they're amazing. I mean, Kooyong are the door-knocking champions. It's that, like, they're so good at it. And I think they must have just knocked on every door last election. So I think they're already out there.
I know we have at least one of those on the call, one of those knockers.
Yeah. Good on you. That's great.
And Ray's asked, what's the relationship like with the Greens?
Look, I feel like that's past my my expertise. I'm sure they're all, they're working with everyone. They're working with every party. So I mean, I just don't feel I am knowledgeable enough to answer that question in any detail.
I've actually got one of mine. When you were talking about the hung parliament, one thing that's I found so frustrating is the lack of action on the EPBC Act. And, all the talk about, we're going to save the diversity, and just no action at all, or just sort of shuffling papers. If we had a hung parliament, do you see that we could get better action on some of those sort of critical foundation pieces that we need to support, yeah, just better outcomes?
Well, I would like to think so, because they would have to negotiate on all of these issues. And
Mm.
it would be a minority government. And I just as an aside, I might commend one of the sessions that we had at our convention, where Richard Dennis talked about, and with Zoe Daniel, about the new language of politics, and that a hung parliament or two-party preferred and all of that terminology is just not going to continue to be relevant in this new world. And of course, the whole idea of a hung parliament makes it sound like it's just going to be chaos and it's going to be a disaster, but there are minority governments in Europe. New South Wales is a minority government. The Senate is a minority. It just means there has to be negotiation and compromise. It doesn't mean chaos. So, Carol, I would hope that would mean that all of these things that we want action on would actually have to be discussed properly.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I've actually heard it said that those societies that have more different parties having to join coalitions are actually more sophisticated than just a sort of a sledgehammer two-party system. That's good. Anybody got any?
I hope so. Anyway,
We hope. Yeah, we'll see. Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to, or any points they'd like to make?
I've just got one more question for you, Tina. I mean, you've obviously been doing this a long time. What keeps you so energized and sort of, involved, do you think?
Well, it started off with the cause, and that still does keep me energized. That how important climate action is, and and all of the other things that we talk about, integrity in politics and gender equity. So the cause does, and I get a little boost every time one of our independents does something great. And the other day, when Zali's there calling Dutton out for being a racist, and we get what Mon with getting the head start done. Every time I see one of those, it's just like I get a little hit. But I also think it is actually the wonderful people that I get to work with, and people that I have met through this journey. I had never met Kirsty before 2018, and now she's one of my very best friends. And this is something that I think, and I'm sure people on this call who are part of campaigns will back me up in this. The wonderful like-minded people that we get to meet. And, I really underestimated my community. When I started out on this journey, I really didn't think that there were a lot of people that thought like me. Well, guess what? There were, and I got to meet them. And that is one of the joys of the movement, just the people and the connections and the sense of agency. We don't have to scream at the TV anymore. We can actually do something and get involved. And this is a movement for everyone. Like, everybody is welcome. And I think that's what energizes me. It's just great fun, Yeah.
No, I think that's exactly how probably Carolyn and I feel, isn't it? Yeah, we've met lots of great people, just as you said, and it's fun just being part of it all. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it is. So we're losing people now, but join us.
Very good. I think we might wind things up there. So, Tina, thank you so much. It's been a fabulous session, and was really looking forward to that. And it was really, really great. So, thank you so much for sharing your time and all the great insights, and and thank you for everything you've done over many, many years for the environment in particular. It's really appreciated by all of us, and look forward to seeing where it all goes. So, thanks again.
Thank you. Well,
yeah, thanks, Tina. And also just last month, Blair Palisi spoke to us, and she sent me a note, which I'll share now, and then I'll share it online around on the email as well. But there's she was heavily involved in Climate Action Week, which was a couple of months ago, and she's now preparing for Climate Action Week for 2025. And they've got Matt Keane, who's recently joined as the chair of the Climate Change Authority, speaking at an event in October, which is a bit of a fundraiser. So if you'd like to go along, it's in Sydney. This one, I'll send the link around, and that would be great. We've also just working on a few other speakers for the next final few months of the year. So we'll let you know about those as we go forward in the next month or so. And thanks again, everyone. And thanks, please do keep sharing the details of our group with people in your communities and stuff. And our group's now well over 500 people, which is fabulous, and continues to grow. So thanks to all of you. Yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Tina.
No, thank you. I've just learned something about the submerged iceberg I'm just seeing there. It's called the Bummock.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, the hummock. Thanks again, everybody.